Welcome. My name's Ange, and I'm a mindset and wellbeing expert and founder of Conscious Living Hub. I'm so excited to be here today as we celebrate the launch of Goodbye Busy, Hello Happy, a book that is focused on a topic that I'm so very passionate about. And I feel honoured to be able to sit at this table and contribute to this important conversation. However, before we get started, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge the Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation, the traditional owners and custodians of this land that I'm joining you from, as well as acknowledge the lands from which you may be joining us from. And I'd like to pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. So today, I'm going to dive into what is the busyness paradox, touching on how we got ourselves into this state in the first place. And from this, share some tips on how recalibrating your emotional compass is one technique you can use to break the cycle of busy and live a happier life. But before we do that, I wanted to give you a quick intro into who I am and why I founded Conscious Living Hub. So, as I mentioned, I'm a mindset and wellbeing coach. I'm also a business owner, a mum, wife, and so much more. In fact, when I think about all of the different hats I wear each day, many I'm sure that you can resonate with, it's little surprise that we find ourselves where we are today, which is having a conversation about how you can break the busyness cycle so you can live a life that brings us so much more joy. So I founded Conscious Living Hub a few years ago so I could have a platform to share tips and ideas around mindset and wellbeing, with a focus on how people can consciously say yes and no to things without the guilt that they're letting people down, and so that they can move towards the dream life they want. I'm continually refining my craft in the mindset and wellbeing space, and I currently work as a coach, speaker, and mentor. I especially love helping people break the busyness cycle so they can live a life that brings them joy, which is why I'm here today, and I strongly believe that each of us deserves to be in a state of thriving. And the more work I do in this space, the more I see the main reason people don't feel in control of their lives is because they firstly don't have access to the resources and tools that will allow them to thrive. But secondly, they don't have the right people around them to make the changes they need to live the life they want, which is where people like me and the other fabulous authors of this book play a really important role. But enough about me. So why are we here today, and what am I going to talk about? So 3 sections to today's workshop. The first one is just to talk about the busyness paradox. So what is it? Why are you so attracted to this state of being? And which societal norms are bubbling along in your psyche? Then we're going to look at, we're going to do an exercise where you can recalibrate your own emotional compass so that you've got greater awareness of what things make you happy and the sorts of things you should be saying yes and no to. And then finally, we're going to create space. I'm going to share you some quick wins that you can implement immediately that will allow you to create space for the things that matter most to you. So I hope that all sounds great. And you might also like to get a pen and paper if you haven't already done so that you can make some notes and jot down some ideas as we're going. All right, the busyness paradox. What is it, and why is it so important that we unpack the impact this paradox is having on our lives? Well, firstly, everywhere you turn, there's yet another sign that a busy life is a good life. Speed is highly regarded, efficiency praised, and the ability to juggle multiple tasks is applauded. I'm sure you were told many times as a kid that you should feel lucky to live in a modern world where everything has been engineered to make your life easier. Think supermarkets that have every possible food item under one roof, the evolution of cars, washing machines, instant hot water. Each of these mod cons were designed to buy you more time so that you can kick goals elsewhere. In fact, the feeling of rushing through the day, constantly being pressed for time and always on has never been a more accepted and unavoidable aspect of our lives. And I would even go as far as saying that if you ask me, busyness has become the new normal. We've spent our whole lives rewarding people who have mastered the art of busy, and as a result, we feel compelled to repeat these behaviours and walk a similar path. To make things trickier, when our fast-paced world does suddenly come to a halt, or heaven help us, we make a conscious decision to slow down, negative feelings tend to surface. And because we've never learned how to deal with these feelings, instead of leaning into them, we just add more things to our life to make them go away. So I'm sure you can resonate with this or have a story you could tell of a time when these feelings of discomfort stopped you from slowing down. So this double whammy of living in an always on world combined with our body's natural reaction to taking it slow is why this conversation needs to be had. So thank you for having me. It's time we all learned to lean into these mixed signals and unpack how you can break it so you can live a happy life, which is why I love this quote so much by Henry David Thoreau. He says, "It's not enough to be busy, so are the ants. The question is, what are you busy about?" I believe we need to ask ourselves this question more often. Are we being busy for busy sakes, or is the task we have said yes to actually adding value to the person you want to be and the world you want to show up in? So to make sense of the paradox a bit more, I've identified 4 main reasons why people are stuck being busy. The first one's just the science. So when you complete tasks, unfortunately, your brain releases the pleasure hormone, dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter that is responsible for generating feelings of accomplishment, satisfaction, and happiness. This release of dopamine makes you feel good, and it motivates you to continue completing tasks. You get hooked on this feeling and seek repetition. So you add more and more to your to-do list. The second one is guilt. We've all grown up in a society where high value is placed on productivity. It's become the norm to feel and think that the more you do, the more you're worth. You associate busy with success. You feel pressure to constantly be busy, and to make things worse, emotions such as guilt, shame, and worry can be triggered when you relax and do nothing, which leads you to start doing things again. The third one's fear of missing out. So in this one, you pack your schedule to bursting point due to fear of missing out, or FOMO, the fear of not being included in something you see others doing. Unfortunately, social media has really intensified this issue because we've got this ability to scroll through other people's life events. FOMO releases negative emotions like loneliness and boredom, and so to quash these emotions, you say yes to everything, which makes your life even busier. And the fourth reason I've identified is the phenomenon of dream big. So many of us grew up in a home where you were encouraged to dream big. You learned that the world was your oyster and you could become anything you wanted to be if you worked for it. You could have it all: a successful career, happy marriage, children, a life of travel. This was a great mantra to live by until you ran out of time in your day. So which one of those resonates with you the most? I can absolutely relate to all of them, especially the last one. I love the idea that I could become anything I wanted to be if I worked on it. I really encourage you to take a moment and to sit and ponder which of these reasons resonates with you the most. I think it's a really important step in the process to acknowledge the why, as knowledge is power. And when you're aware of what is going on internally and why you have been drawn to a busy life in the first place, you can start to see the warning signs when one of these factors is trying to pull you back towards the path that you felt compelled to be on, even though it has made you feel so unhappy and exhausted. So the signs we can't avoid, but we obviously need to acknowledge that it exists. But definitely FOMO and the dream big, we can take a bit of ownership of, and we can acknowledge that, yes, that's society and that's the pressure that's been put on us, but we don't have to continue to listen to it. So, and the reason this is because, unfortunately, for me and many others, our desire to live a busy, fulfilling life sets us on a path that's impossible to maintain. My breaking point came at a time when there was a lot of good things happening in my world. I was happily married. I had 3 beautiful kids. I still do. I owned my own business, but my body was starting to say enough. I was burning the wick at both ends, and my ability to stay well was being constantly tested. Around the same time, my mum was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and like many others faced with news like this, I simply entered autopilot. My world shifted, and I juggled it all without any regard for my own well-being. This was compounded further by the overwhelm that engulfed me, knowing my mum was embarking on one of her toughest fights, one that she would not win. You most likely have your own burnout story or some awareness that your current way of being is not serving you. Living a busy life is costing you more than it is benefiting you. Your well-being, work-life disharmony, and meaningless relationships create a ripple effect on you and those around you. What this time showed me was that I needed a reboot. I was both physically and emotionally spent. Being constantly on the go was not serving me. I knew it was time to question why I was walking the path I was on and ultimately whether I was happy on this path. I'm now going to share with you one of the methods I used that you might also like to try to help you say goodbye to busy and hello to happy. And when we're doing this exercise, I really want to sort of just remind you all that it really is possible to break the cycle of busy. You do need to trust the process. You do need to trust that the world you live in is not going to fall apart if you slow down. You need to trust that the people who rely on you will still thrive, even if you take some time out for yourself, and that it really is possible to say goodbye to that busy feeling and hello to a life that makes you happy. All right, so I'm going to say hello to happy. And the quote I like here is, never get so busy making a living, that you forget to make a life. Let's say that again. Never get so busy making a living that you forget to make a life. So what we're going to do is we're going to work on recalibrating your emotional compass so that you can gain clarity around what your true north looks like, the emotions you want to feel more of, and what activities make you happy. This state of utopia will be different for each of us, but what will remain the same is that when you take the time to tune in to what makes you happy, you give yourself a greater chance of creating a life that brings you joy. So the first thing we're going to look at is which feelings make you happy. So as I'm sure you know, happiness is an emotional state, and it's characterized by pleasant or positive feelings. Most commonly, when we think of ourselves as happy, the word that jumps to mind most is joyful. But what people don't always realize is that there are many levels to happiness, including contentment, fulfillment, and satisfaction, all alongside the word joy. So I've got a semi-big list here of happiness feelings, and I'd like you to have a look at the list and pick 3 to 5 emotions that allow you to experience a state of happiness. If a different word springs to mind for you, add it to the list. There's no set list. These are just some words to get you thinking. And as an example, I know I'm happiest when I feel calm, valued, or energized. I'm going to give you a moment. Have a look at the list. What words resonate with you? There's no right or wrong answer. Just circle all the ones that you associate with happiness. And if you end up with more than 5, that's great. And however many you do end up with, I'd like you to then put a little asterisk or a star, a tick box, something next to the 3 that you want to focus on first. So which ones resonate with you the most? Okay, so now that you've got your 3 to 5 emotions, the next thing we want to do is look at what activities actually make you happy. So we know what feelings we want to create more of, and now we're going to look at what activities. So this is a list of all the things you do that make you happy. It doesn't matter if you're currently doing them or not. Simply list everything you wish you had time for. If you're in a state of busy, which I'm sure most of you are, and that's why you're here, and therefore having trouble thinking of something, try to identify activities you like doing under each of these headings. So what do you like doing? How do you like to connect with others? What's your go-to activity when you when you want to be active and you want to exercise? What sort of things do you like to learn? What sort of surroundings make you happiest? Do you get joy when you help others? Or is it that rest and relaxation that makes you truly happy? So again, for today, like I'd just love you to write whatever's in your head now. And I do encourage you that after today, you come back and really think this through, really think about all of the activities that make you happy. The other point I'd like to make that is, if you are struggling to come up with anything, because I know for some it will be a long time since you've really felt happy, and that as you've added things into your life, that feeling of happiness has seemed further and further apart. What I want you to do is think back to a time when you last did feel happy, and think about the sorts of things you were doing. What were you feeling? What were you seeing? And what were you hearing? Because again, in this process, I'm going to show you that even that last time you felt, incredibly happy, it is possible to reintroduce some of those things back into your life, no matter what state of busy you're currently in. Okay, so now we've got our list of emotions that we want to feel more of, and we've identified some activities that also make us happy. So now our job is to combine the two. I'd like you to take one of the emotions you want to feel more of and list the activities, or put a little tick next to the activities you wrote down before that would allow that emotion to surface. So I've included an example for you, for me, what works for me. So when I want to feel calm, the following activities work for me. I can head outside, I can clean, or I can listen to music. And I've also included my why, because that's really important for me. So for me, going outdoors and the sight of water calms me instantly. And I always find a long walk in nature clears my mind. I've learned over time how much mess overwhelms me. And so now, again, I know that if I want to change my vibration, I want to be a little bit more positive and experience a bit more joy, if I declutter, I feel better. And then the last one is music. I find music really powerful. So yeah, I often have music on when I'm working, just in the background. It just makes me that little bit more pumped and excited and ready to hit my goals. So hopefully you're starting to see what happiness really means to you, and the types of activities you can add into your life to help you rediscover your true north. Remember, it will be different for everyone. You may feel calm when you're drinking a cup of tea, talking to a friend on the phone, or lying down in a dark room. There are no right or wrong scenarios to this. It's simply whatever aligns for you. Now, the final step in this process, so this is part 2, I encourage you to do is place these words somewhere you can see them every day. So some good places to put it is on your mirror in your bathroom, so that whenever you go into the bathroom first thing of the day, you see these words. Another really good place to put them is on the door you walk out when you leave home for the day. So back door for me. And the third place that I think is really good is on your fridge, because you go there so often. So I really encourage you to do that. And then whenever you reach a state of busy, refer to your newfound emotional compass and use it to redirect your time and attention, especially when deciding what you should say yes to and what you should say no to. And over time, you won't need the visual cues. I no longer need it. That's sort of imprinted on my mind. And that's a great thing about doing this exercise. So the things you value, they will become imprinted on your mind, and you will naturally gravitate towards activities and saying yes to things that allow the emotions that you've identified to surface. So I hope that's all resonated and sounds good, and you're already starting to think how easy it is to bring those good emotions back into your life. So now we're going to move on to the third part, which is saying goodbye to busy. I'm just going to share my screen again. This is why we're here, right? We are here to learn ways to say goodbye to busy. So the quote I love here is, by creating space, by getting rid of things that no longer serves you, invites possibility, opportunity, and more space for love. So that's what we are here to do. We are here to create space. We're here to get rid of the things that no longer serve you. And as a result, we're going to invite possibility, opportunity, and more space for love in your world. Okay, so got 5 ways that you can create space. The first one is unschedule. So the easiest way to create space in your life is to reassess the weeks ahead. What have you said yes to that is not going to serve you? It's time to be brave and remove these items from your schedule and start saying no to other things. You don't need a reason to say no, but this is an important first step in allowing you to make room for things that matter to you. So again, if you can take a moment now, just think of, even if it's a week ahead, for many of us, we're going into school holidays. So is there something that you've said yes to this week that's just, you know, it's going to stress you out, you know that you've said yes for the wrong reasons, that you could go and say no to? Or was there something in the second week of the holidays that you in and ahhing about doing? You think you should do it, society tells you you should do it, but after hearing what I've said so far, you're kind of like, maybe I could say no to that as well. It's liberating, okay? Everything we say no to is an hour where we invite possibility and opportunity. The second area I suggest that you work on is just refueling. So most women I meet who are burnt out and exhausted from the busy have poor sleep, nutrition, and exercise habits. So when we review these and work on them, it actually allows us to refuel. We regain the brain power to tackle the reason we got here in the first place, which is being too busy. Okay, so I understand that you might not be able to focus on all of them right away. You might be a new mum breastfeeding every 3 hours, so getting more sleep is tricky, but you can still make changes, and remember, even the smallest shifts will help. Things like focusing on drinking more water, or going for a stroll, or eating a really wholesome, eating breakfast in the morning, that most important meal of the day. Again, I'd like you to just write down a couple of things that you could start doing or stop doing straight away that will help your body thrive. And when we're in a state of busy, sometimes it's important to focus on this for a few days. If you know you haven't been to bed early for 3 or 4 nights, getting 1 or 2 good nights sleep in a row will really help. If you need to change your diet and start to eat some more sustenance, do it for that 48, 72 hours, and you'll start to feel like you've got the energy, which will then allow you to make the right decisions, good decisions that will help you to say goodbye to busy. Step 3 is reflect. So now it's time to reflect on the real issue. Why are you feeling the way that you are? Note down all the scenarios in your life that are currently adding to your busyness. Is it work? Is it the constant run around you do for the kids? Is it the state of your house? Perhaps it's a number of things you need to get done before you leave for work each day. So again, I'll just give you a moment so you can reflect on your current state and what things are adding to your busy. And again, if you don't have time now, if there's so much on your list, come back to this exercise. It's really important that you write down everything that's in your head that's creating that feeling of busy. Journaling is a really important step, Okay, so whenever there's too much going on in your head, by simply putting it onto paper, you are helping your brain say goodbye, or just letting go of all of those feelings and acknowledging them. So now, for every scenario you've identified, give yourself a busyness score out of 10, with 1 being calm and 10 so busy you can't figure out what task to do first. This is another really important step, because it starts to show you that although you would give yourself a busyness score out of 10, maybe even 100, when you chunk it out and write it all down, the areas that are adding to your busyness, you'll start to see that some of them are impacting you more than others. And that some, actually, when you just, you might say cleanliness, when you chunk it down, it might actually only be a 3 or a 4. Whereas all of the things that you need to get done after school, after school pickup, or in your job, you might put them as an 8 or a 9. So rather than now having a 10, a busyness scale of 10 in our head, we've got 7 or 8 scenarios that are making us busy. And some of them will be a 3 or a 4, and some of them will be a 9 or a 10. So yeah, I encourage you to do that. Just take a quick moment to put a number beside each thing. Okay. So now we're going to dive deeper. Step 4. I want you to select the scenario with the highest busy score and dive a bit deeper. Write down all the things that are causing you to feel the way you do. If you chose work, is it the pile of unanswered emails, the report you need to finish, the number of meetings each day? Keep jotting things down until you can't think of anything else. Now, again, this is another one where I'm not probably going to give you enough time to write down all of the things that are causing you to feel the way you do. But if you can just make a start. So encourage you to try to write down about 5 things that are adding to your busy. Now, from that list, identify 2 things that you can start doing straight away that will help you feel less busy. It could be that you allocate time in your diary to work on your report, or you could condense all of your meetings into one part of your day. Also, look at the things you can stop doing. The reason we want to remove things from your list is that right now your brain doesn't have the space to attract new things into your life that make you happy. You're just too stuck in busy. Maybe your biggest pressure point is running your kids around to their activities. Why not consider teaming up with another parent to share the drop-offs and pickups? Imagine what you could do with an extra 30 minutes if you were sharing the load. Speak up, start the conversation, as every half hour counts. And the parent you share with will also appreciate getting some time back in their day. And the last step is act. Put the plan into action. Make sure you give it a good go, and after a couple of weeks, pause and note how it made you feel. Did it work? Did you feel less busy in that part of your day, or was it a fail? Did it create bigger stress elsewhere? If it was a fail, that's okay too. Note it down. Accept it was a bump in the road and try again. The key is to try different things until you find your ways to say goodbye to busy. You can then say yes to the things that make you feel happier. Maybe it's that cup of tea and a chat with a friend. Maybe it's an early morning walk. Whatever activities you noted down earlier, these are the things that you now need to consciously add back into your life. But start slow. Only add a couple of things at a time. I want you to succeed. And when you chunk it down into small, manageable tasks, you can master these changes before you take on more. Life has also shown me that it takes time and energy to create a life that truly aligns to your happiness goals and brings you true joy. Life is full of curveballs, so even with our greatest intentions of living in a state where we can feel happy, we will also experience phases when our life seems out of control. If we can continuously take the time to adjust, we'll be in a better position to respond to the bumps in the road and recognize when the pendulum is swinging the wrong way. For me, I find I go through this process 2 to 4 times a year, usually as the seasons change, because this is when I find my commitments alter and my energy levels shift. So I need to do a bit of a reset. And this same rhythm may work for you, or you may find that once a year is enough. All right, so just to recap, today you've acquired 3 new tools or resources that you can use moving forward that will help you break the cycle of busy so you can create a happier life. You've taken time to acknowledge and understand why you were so drawn to a busy life in the first place and which underlying factors are your kryptonite. As I mentioned before, knowledge is power. And once you know why you were drawn to busy, you can make a conscious decision to not listen to the voice in your head, but instead start to say, I hear you, I acknowledge you, but I don't want to walk this path anymore, so I'm not going to listen. The second thing you've done is you've recalibrated your emotional compass and your true north when it comes to what makes you happy. You now have an awareness of what activities you can do to help these emotions come to the surface. And as a result, you're now more empowered to introduce these back into your life. And as I like to say, positivity is contagious. So the smallest shift today will have a cascading effect, and you will attract more and more opportunities into your life that make you feel good and align to your true north. Going through this process is also really important because for many of us, this state of busyness has gotten more and more intense over the years as we've added more and more into our lives. So it's no wonder you've equally forgotten what some of your most simplest pleasures are. And the final thing we worked through today in this workshop was how to create space. How to create space in your currently busy schedule for some of the activities you want to start doing. Like I mentioned before, when you do it the first time, I encourage you to do it in the order. So unschedule, refuel, reflect, dive, deep, and act. But over time, you will be able to jump in at different spots, depending on how early you recognize that you're re-entering a state of busy that is not going to serve you. So hopefully I've sparked something inside of you today that will get you into the driver's seat on your path to happiness. You now have a whole new suite of resources available that will allow you to make the small changes you need in your life to say goodbye to the busy and hello to the happy. And in closing, I just have a small reflection about the power of this book and its parallels to another book I love, which is called Ask and It Is Given by Esther and Jerry Hicks. And for those of you not familiar with this book, it reminds you that there is nothing you cannot do, be, or have. And if your dominant intention is to feel good, then you're in a position to opening yourself up to attracting the resources and tools that will help guide you towards the state you want. So once again, there's nothing you cannot do, be, or have. And if your dominant intention is to feel happy, then you have just given yourself permission to attract that into your life, which is where I see the parallel between their amazing book and this one. Their book included 22 processes that you can try if there is something you want to improve. And this book includes 25 stories that can be read in any random order. And if something resonates with you, you can earmark it. And when you have the time, you can go back and benefit from the ideas shared. The stories you're attracted to now will be right for where you are in this moment. And as time passes, different chapters will resonate. So if you don't already have a copy of the book, make sure you go and buy a copy today. And if you'd personally like to stay in touch with me, here are my contact details. So thanks again for tuning in, and I look forward to hearing how this book has helped guide you as you make a conscious decision to break your busyness cycle. And thank you again for coming.